Weight loss, another lesson learned. That's today's topic on Meema Make Living Healthy. Stay tuned. Hello. Like I said earlier, today's topic is weight loss, another lesson learned. But before I get into that, I want to tell you about something I'm celebrating today. I am celebrating this day in history for me because 46 years ago today, I became a mother for the very first time. You know, that means my oldest child, my daughter, was born 46 years ago today. As you may have already noticed, I've got my purple top on that I talked about last week that I've already worn. This makes the fourth time I've worn it now in the last month. So I'm really getting my money's worth out of it. But I've got it on because later on we are going to celebrate. We'll eat supper together, and I'm looking forward to spending some quality time with my family this evening. And I love my daughter dearly. She is a precious, selfless soul, and someday maybe she'll be on this video and you can get to know a little piece of her. One other thing I do want to get out of the way, I wanted to film one more time outside before it gets so cold that it's not conducive to do it. Well, I picked a very windy day, so I hope you'll be able to not be too distracted because this is going to happen ever so often. I have to get my hair out of my face. So I did pull it back, so it's not as bad. But let's get on to the topic today. Weight loss. Now, the reason I started it that way, today's Thursday. Obviously, my weigh-in day. So let's see how I did this week. I've got a couple of notes down here because I've been doing this for so long that all the numbers sort of blend in together. And so I do want to be as accurate as I can be about this. So, last Thursday, I still hate how much it was, but I weighed in at 124.6. And then this morning, when I weighed in at 121.4. Now, that's over 3 pounds. Do I think I lost 3 pounds in the last week? No, I probably didn't. I did do much better this week than I did last week, but I don't think that 124.6 was truly accurate. We've talked about this several times in the past, so I'm not going to go into all of that. I want to get to my topic for today. And the topic is another lesson learned. Now, I didn't learn this lesson this week. I applied this lesson this week, but I actually learned it about a year ago. I sort of learned it about 5 years ago, but I really learned it last year. You see, in the last couple of years, with all this craziness going on, I was also going through my own personal struggles. I've shared with many of you before that starting in April of 2019, I began to sit with my sister-in-law, my precious, precious sister-in-law, who would have done the exact same thing for me if she'd have been able to. She had always been there for us, always stepped up to the plate when we couldn't, and the least I could do would be to help her when she needed it the most. And so that's what I did from April until August. I sat with her several days a week, just to give her comfort, I guess. It wasn't literal comfort, but it was, emotional comfort. We laughed a lot. We cried some, but we had some wonderful times together those last 4 or 5 months. I don't regret doing it. She passed away in August of 2019. And from April to August, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to Weight Watchers. I was still weighing. I learned back in 2017 that I had to weigh every week, and I was doing that, but I wasn't tracking like I should have. Early on, I took on a saying or a motto that I used in several different areas. And I wasn't on YouTube until January of 2019, but I was active on the Weight Watcher app. And part of that app had an area called Connect. And whenever I would try to be inspirational or help people out that were struggling, I'd always end my post, or whatever you want to call it, by saying, good luck, God bless, and keep on tracking. That's what I always ended it with, and I wasn't doing that. Starting about May or June of 2019, I would track, but I just wasn't regularly doing it. I had other things on my mind. Well, then, shortly after my sister-in-law passed away in 2019, I began to sit with my sister, who was suffering from dementia, Lewy body's dementia specifically. It was stressful. In some ways, it was more stressful than staying with Papa's sister, because Papa's sister, she was very lucid up until the last couple of weeks of her life, and my sister was not. My sister had a different view of the world. She could not see the world the way that it was. Her mind was not clear any longer. Now, I learned to love this new sister, but it took a while. It took a while because she had a lot of fear in her life, and so I had to try and help combat it. Now, I didn't stay with her as much as I had my sister-in-law, but I still wasn't tracking very accurately. I was very distracted by the life that I was living, and so I sort of forgot about Weight Watchers. And I don't think I said this earlier, so I'm going to say it now. From April until August of 2019, I probably started around 115 pounds in April. And by the time my sister-in-law passed away, I had gained, at least 5 pounds. I was probably around 120. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, I'm still talking about 115 to 120. But 5 pounds makes a difference on how your clothes fit. Now, get back to sitting with my sister. I did not sit with her as much as I did my sister-in-law, but I still, each week, would come and relieve my brother-in-law for just a few hours so that he could have some time alone, or some time with his friends, or some time just to recharge his batteries from what he was having to live through. I cannot imagine what he lived through for probably 3 or 4 years. I so admire him for being the husband that he was to my sister. He was very precious to her. He loved her. They had been together for over 50 years. And I just cannot say enough about what a wonderful job he did with my sister. As time went on, I still was not tracking accurately. I still had all that in my mind. Good luck. God bless. Keep on tracking. And I wasn't doing it. I was not tracking accurately at all. I might go 2 or 3 days without tracking, or if I did track, it would just be breakfast. And about a year after I began doing that with my sister, I found myself 5 pounds heavier. I'd gone from 115 to 120, and then about a year later, I'd gone from 120 to 125. Now, most of you know my happy weight is 123 to 125, so I was over it. I was a little over 125. But I didn't stop then. I was in the midst of all this craziness that we've had to live through these last few years, and I just couldn't seem to get a hold of it. I'll tell you what the lesson was here in a minute that helped me to get a hold of it. But I do want to share something that happened in November of 2020. My precious aunt joined my mother in heaven in November. It was so hard. She had been my substitute mother since my mother passed away in 2004. She used to say, because she was close to 90 years old when she passed away, and she used to say, I just don't know why I'm still here. And I would say to her, if nothing else, you're here for me. You are here for me. Hold on. Sorry about that. I got a phone call. Anyway, I told my aunt she was here for me. She helped me through so many hard times after my mother passed away. And yet, when her time came in November of 2020, it was hard. I knew she was ready to go home, to be with 2 out of 3 of her children, her husband, my mother, their brother, their parents. She was ready. And so God took her to heaven, and I miss her, but I know she's so much happier than what she was the last year of her life. Now, during all of that time, I was still staying with my sister when I could. I went through some times where my hip had messed up. I had gained over 10 pounds now. I was in the neighborhood of 126 pounds, and I couldn't, as much as I tried to get those pounds off. And then in February of 2021, my sister died. And it was almost like the last straw. I was so lost. I didn't know what to do those first few months. I had stepped away from YouTube in July of 2020 because I just could not concentrate enough to be able to do a video. I was gaining some weight, not a lot, but I was gaining weight. And so I didn't feel like I would be an encouragement to anybody because of it. And all this other craziness we were going through, it was just, I knew I wasn't going to make productive, encouraging videos. So, when my sister passed away in February of 2021, I was just lost. I truly went through the grieving process, not just of her, not just of my aunt, but I finally got to grieve my sister-in-law. I had gone from one job to another those 2 years. I'm not complaining about it. I would do every bit of it again. But it was time for me to grieve. And while I was grieving, guess what? Weight Watchers was not at the top of my list. So by the time I started filming again in May of 2021, I was 13 pounds heavier than I had been back before I started sitting with my sister-in-law. Now, 13 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but I was no longer in size 4, and I was barely in a size 6. I really wasn't. I had some 6s that were a little bigger, and I could still wear them, but for the most part, I was in a size 8. And that's what size I had promised myself I was never going to get out of again. Well, my weight had fluctuated up. 1 week, I know I weighed 131. That's the most I weighed. And I sat back one day. Now, this is after I started videoing again and posting to YouTube. I sat back and I tried my best to evaluate what I was doing wrong, because I knew I was doing something wrong. It wasn't that I was doing something wrong. It was something I wasn't doing. Each day I would haphazardly track. Each day I didn't really think about Weight Watchers. I did think about my food, but in about July of 2021, I decided it was time to get those 10 to 15 pounds off. And I was trying my best to figure out how to do it. And this is what I came up with. This is the lesson I learned. Each day, I devote 30 minutes to Weight Watchers, or to my Weight Watchers journey, to the life that I have chosen to live accordingly with how I eat, how I prepare the food. I decided I had to give it 30 minutes a day. Now you may say, I don't want to do 30 minutes a day. I've got lots of other stuff to do. Well, incorporate it in with it. You see, I get up every day and I have things I do every day. I obviously get out of bed. I get in the shower. I clean myself up as best I can, brush my teeth, apply just a little bit of makeup, and then I go about my day. Well, during that time, I can think, I can plan, I can do all that I need to do except write it down. I do need to take just a few minutes to write it down and track it. And that's the lesson I learned. Just like I have to get up and clean myself up and maybe clean the house up a little bit and wash some clothes, I need to devote time to what I've chosen to do with my life and the food that I eat and my Weight Watcher journey. It's 30 minutes a day, but it's worth so much more than that. And so if you'll think of it like that, if I devote these 30 minutes a day, I'll stay, or I can get to the healthy weight range I need to be in. So I started doing that last July. I was determined to at least get that 10 pounds off. I wanted to get back in my happy weight. I shared that several times on this channel, that I was frustrated that I was weighing between 128 and 130. I would lose down and then I'd gain it back, and I'd lose down. So when I began to give 30 minutes a day toward what I was going to eat and how I was going to prepare it, the weight came off. I also, really important, tracked. I tracked like a demon. I put in every single thing that I put in my mouth. And that's important for me, because when I don't, that's when I'll have the 3-pound gain like I did last week, because I caught myself not tracking a lot last week. I was still trying to give that 30 minutes a day, but I really wasn't. because part of that 30 minutes does include tracking. So that's the lesson I learned. I hope you will see the importance of devoting 30 minutes a day, so that you can be in the weight you want to be in, that healthy weight range, that healthy BMI. And you'll do it. Let's say you're on maintenance like I am. You'll be able to do it before it gets out of hand. You see, my whole life before, whenever I would do diets, I'd gain the weight back. Once I stopped devoting myself, once I stopped being committed to those diets, I'd gain it back. And this time I'm not going to do it. I know I have figured it out, that if I will spend 30 minutes a day, I'll stay within a healthy weight range. I won't let it get out of hand. I won't. I do not want to do that again. Yes, sometimes I feel sorry for myself. Yes, sometimes I don't feel like spending those 30 minutes a day, but guess what? If I don't, the next day, I got to spend an hour, and sometimes I do that. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I wish I could be outside many more times, but I know this is probably the last time for 2022. Comment below, have you ever found yourself being so caught up in life that you can't devote 30 minutes a day to your health? I hope you have a wonderful week. Goodbye.